Welcome to AgeWise. I've been gardening for most of my life. I've grown everything from tomatoes to roses, battled stubborn weeds, and spent more hours digging in the dirt than I can count. Gardening is supposed to be relaxing, but let me tell you, it comes with its fair share of surprises, and not all of them are good. Most people think of gardening as a peaceful hobby, but ask anyone who's done it long enough and they'll tell you about the hidden dangers that can turn a simple afternoon into days or even weeks of pain and regret. Pulled muscles, surprise encounters with nature's bitey little nightmares, and accidents that you never saw coming. Before you pick up that shovel, let's talk about the 12 gardening injuries you never saw coming, and more importantly, how to avoid them. Let's begin. Injury number 1, back and knee strain. It starts off innocent, a little weeding here, a little planting there. Next thing you know, you're hunched over like a question mark, wondering why your knees feel like they belong to someone twice your age. Gardening is deceptive. It looks peaceful, but in reality, it's a high-repetition, high-strain activity. Studies show that prolonged bending and kneeling put up to 7 times your body weight on your knees. That's the equivalent of carrying a full-grown St. Bernard on your back while you reach for that stubborn weed. And if that wasn't enough, repetitive forward bending places constant pressure on the lower spine, increasing the risk of herniated discs, muscle spasms, and long-term stiffness. One day it's a little soreness, the next you're barely able to get out of bed. The good news? Avoiding this kind of pain is easier than you'd think. Shorter gardening sessions with built-in breaks can do wonders. A kneeling pad or gardening bench helps reduce joint pressure. Lifting should always come from the legs, not the back. And here's a tip most people forget: warming up before gardening. Just 5 minutes of light stretching can mean the difference between a productive day outside and an evening spent covered in heating pad. That's one way gardening gets you. But the next injury, it's even sneakier. You won't feel it happening until suddenly you're dealing with a whole different kind of pain. Injury number 2, tendonitis and overuse pain. It starts as a little stiffness in your wrist or elbow, nothing serious, just the usual aches and pains that come with a good day's work in the garden. But then, the stiffness turns into a sharp, nagging pain. Gripping tools gets harder. Even twisting a doorknob feels like a struggle. That's tendonitis, and if you ignore it, it only gets worse. Gardening may not seem physically intense, but repetitive motions like digging, pruning, and gripping tools can lead to serious strain on the tendons. Studies show that tendonitis is one of the most common repetitive strain injuries among older adults, especially in the wrist, elbow, and shoulder. It happens when the tendons, those tough bands of tissue that connect muscle to bone, become inflamed from overuse. And unlike sore muscles, which recover in a day or two, inflamed tendons can take weeks or even months to heal if not treated properly. The best way to avoid this? Mix up your movements. Switching hands while digging or pruning can prevent overuse on one side. Using ergonomic tools with padded handles reduces strain on the wrists and elbows. And the most underrated fix? Taking breaks and stretching your hands, wrists, and arms before and after gardening. Small adjustments can make the difference between a lifelong love of gardening and an injury that takes you out of the game. One injury from repetitive movement is bad enough, but the next one? It sneaks up on you in a completely different way, and if you don't see it coming, it can turn a simple afternoon in the garden into a serious emergency. Injury number 3, heat stroke and dehydration. It doesn't take much. A warm day, a few hours outside, and before you know it, your body is overheating faster than you realize. Heat stroke and dehydration are some of the most dangerous gardening risks, especially for older adults. And the scariest part? By the time you feel the warning signs, you might already be in trouble. Studies show that adults over 65 are at a much higher risk of heat illnesses because the body's ability to regulate temperature weakens with age. Add in the physical effort of gardening and a little dehydration, and suddenly, a simple afternoon in the sun can lead to dizziness, nausea, confusion, or even fainting. Severe cases can cause heat stroke, a life-threatening condition where the body overheats so much that organs start to shut down. Prevention is simple. but most people don't think about it until it's too late. Drink water before you even feel thirsty. Wear light, breathable clothing. Garden early in the morning or later in the evening when temperatures are lower, and never ignore signs like dizziness, headache, or unusual fatigue. If you ever feel off, stop immediately and cool down. Heat injuries happen fast, but some dangers creep up over time. The next one? You won't notice it right away, but it can cause serious long-term damage if you're not careful. If you're finding these tips helpful, make sure to subscribe to AgeWise for more ways to stay safe, active, and injury-free. Injury number 4, sunburn and skin damage. A little sun feels good. It warms your skin, lifts your mood, and gives you that healthy glow. But too much? That's where the trouble starts. Sunburn isn't just a temporary discomfort. Repeated exposure leads to long-term skin damage, premature aging, and an increased risk of skin cancer. And for older adults, the skin is already thinner and more vulnerable, making protection even more important. Research from the Skin Cancer Foundation shows that 1 in 5 people will develop skin cancer by the age of 70. And here's something even more alarming. Most skin damage happens before you even see the burn. UV rays penetrate deep into the skin, breaking down collagen and increasing the risk of melanoma, the deadliest form of skin cancer. Sunburn isn't always obvious at first. It can start as a warm sensation on the skin, followed by redness, tenderness, and in severe cases, blistering. But the real danger is what's happening beneath the surface. UV exposure weakens the skin's ability to heal, making cuts, scrapes, and bruises take longer to recover. The solution is simple but often overlooked. Use sunscreen with at least SPF 30 even on cloudy days. Wear a wide-brimmed hat, long sleeves, and sunglasses for extra protection, and take breaks in the shade, especially between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., when UV rays are strongest. Sun damage is bad enough, but the next gardening injury? It comes from something you never expect until it's already causing serious problems. Injury number 5, puncture wounds and infections. A small scratch, a tiny thorn, a quick jab from a rusty tool. It doesn't seem like much until it gets infected. Gardening exposes your skin to bacteria, fungi, and even tetanus, all lurking in the soil and on your tools. What starts as a minor wound can quickly turn into a painful infection, or worse, a serious medical issue. According to the CDC, tetanus bacteria live in soil, dust, and manure, and can enter the body through even the smallest puncture wound. Once inside, it attacks the nervous system, causing muscle stiffness, spasms, and in severe cases, life-threatening complications. And it's not just tetanus. Bacteria like staph and streptococcus thrive in dirt and can cause deep infections if they enter a cut. The early signs of infection are easy to miss. Redness, swelling, warmth, or a little tenderness around the wound might not seem like a big deal at first. But if ignored, it can lead to pus, fever, and in extreme cases, sepsis, a dangerous condition where the infection spreads through the bloodstream. Preventing this is easier than you think. Always wear gloves to protect your hands from thorns, sharp tools, and bacteria in the soil. Clean any cuts or scrapes immediately with soap and water, then apply an antibiotic ointment and cover with a bandage. And if you haven't had a tetanus booster in the last 10 years, it might be time to check with your doctor. Scratches and cuts are one thing, but the next gardening danger? It doesn't just sting. It can trigger a full-body reaction that lands you in the hospital before you even know what hit you. Injury number 6, allergic reactions to plants and insect bites. I learned this one the hard way. One summer, I was pulling weeds like usual, minding my own business, when out of nowhere my arms started itching like crazy. A few minutes later, they were covered in red, angry welts. Turns out I had brushed up against poison ivy without realizing it, and let me tell you, the next few days were miserable. Gardens are full of plants and insects that can cause allergic reactions, some mild and some downright dangerous. Poison ivy, oak, and sumac contain an oil called urushiol, which causes intense itching, blisters, and swelling. Even plants that seem harmless, like certain flowers and herbs, can trigger skin irritation or respiratory issues for those with allergies. And then there are the insects. Bee and wasp stings, fire ant bites, and spider venom can cause severe allergic reactions, including anaphylaxis in extreme cases. The reaction can start with swelling and itching, but in some people it quickly escalates to difficulty breathing, dizziness, and a drop in blood pressure. The best way to avoid this nightmare? Know what's growing in your yard and be mindful of what you're touching. Wear long sleeves and gloves when working around unknown plants. Keep an eye out for insect nests, and if you're allergic to stings, always carry an epinephrine injector or antihistamines just in case. I got lucky. A few days of anti-itch cream and I was back to normal. But for some people, one sting or one touch of the wrong plant can turn a relaxing day in the garden into a medical emergency. And if you think insects in plants are bad, wait until you hear about the danger that's hiding in plain sight, right under your feet. Injury number 7, slips, trips, and falls. Gardening keeps you active, but let's be honest. One wrong step and you're suddenly testing gravity in the worst way possible. Slips, trips, and falls are one of the most common causes of serious injuries for older adults. The garden is full of hidden hazards just waiting to take you down. Wet grass, uneven ground, loose stepping stones, tangled hoses, stray tools. All of these create the perfect recipe for a nasty fall. According to the CDC, 1 in 4 adults over 65 experiences a fall each year. Gardening increases the risk with all the bending, lifting, and moving around. The consequences can be serious: broken wrists, fractured hips, head injuries that take months to heal. Most falls happen in an instant. 1 second you're carrying a watering can, the next you're flat on your back wondering what just happened. And it's not just outdoor hazards. Indoor gardening spaces like garages and potting sheds can be just as risky. Cluttered floors, slippery surfaces, poor lighting, all of these add to the danger. The good news is a few small changes can make a big difference. Wear sturdy, non-slip shoes with good traction. Keep paths clear of tools, hoses, and debris. Use raised beds or container gardens to reduce bending and awkward movements. If you struggle with balance, a simple garden stool or kneeler can keep you steady while working at ground level. Slips and falls are bad enough, but the next gardening hazard does not just hurt your body. It can damage something you might not even think about until it is already too late. Injury number 8. Eye injuries from flying debris and chemicals. Gardening might seem like a low-risk activity, but one wrong move and your eyes could pay the price. Dirt, branches, flying debris, and even chemicals can cause serious eye injuries in an instant. A gust of wind kicks up soil. A snapped branch whips back faster than you can react. A splash of fertilizer lands exactly where it shouldn't. It happens quicker than you think. The American Academy of Ophthalmology warns that thousands of eye injuries occur in home gardens each year, many leading to permanent damage. Even a small speck of dirt can scratch the cornea, causing irritation and blurred vision. More severe injuries, like chemical burns or blunt force trauma, can result in long-term vision problems. The first signs of trouble are usually itching, redness, or excessive tearing, but more serious injuries can cause swelling, light sensitivity, or sudden vision changes. If something gets in your eye, never rub it. Rinse immediately with clean water and seek medical attention if pain or blurriness persists. The best way to avoid this? Wear safety glasses or wrap-around goggles whenever you're pruning, digging, or handling chemicals. Trim branches carefully to avoid getting whipped in the face. And when mixing fertilizers, pesticides, or even natural compost, be extra cautious with splashes. Your eyes work hard in the garden, but they are not the only thing at risk. The next injury does not come from tools or plants. It comes from something you might not even see until it is too late. Injury number 9, hearing damage from loud equipment. Gardening is peaceful, birds chirping, leaves rustling, then the lawnmower starts and suddenly it sounds like a jet engine taking off in your backyard. Power tools like lawn mowers, leaf blowers, and hedge trimmers can reach noise levels high enough to cause permanent hearing damage. The worst part? Most people do not notice the damage until it is already done. According to the National Institute on Deafness, prolonged exposure to sounds over 85 decibels can lead to hearing loss. A lawnmower runs at about 90 decibels. A leaf blower can hit 100. Chainsaws over 110. At that level, just a few minutes of exposure without protection can start damaging the tiny hair cells in your inner ear that help you hear. Once they are gone, they do not grow back. The signs of hearing damage can be subtle at first: a slight ringing in the ears, trouble understanding conversations in noisy places, a feeling like sounds are muffled or distant. Over time, it gets worse, and by the time most people realize what is happening, the damage is permanent. Protecting your hearing is simple. Wear noise-canceling earmuffs or earplugs whenever you are using loud equipment. Take breaks to give your ears time to recover, and if you need to shout to be heard over your tools, that is a sign the noise is already too loud. Your ears might recover after a loud afternoon in the garden, but the next injury? It affects your health in a way you would never expect, and it starts with the very thing your plants depend on to grow. Injury number 10: toxic soil and pesticide exposure. Gardening is all about getting your hands in the dirt, but not all soil is as harmless as it looks. Hidden beneath the surface are bacteria, fungi, and even toxic chemicals that can cause serious health problems over time. The more you dig, the more you expose yourself to contaminants that do not just affect your garden, but your body too. Studies from the Environmental Protection Agency show that many home gardens contain traces of lead, arsenic, and other harmful heavy metals, especially in older or urban areas. These toxins can come from past pesticide use, contaminated water, or even pollution from nearby roads. Long-term exposure has been linked to respiratory issues, nerve damage, and weakened immune function. Pesticides and fertilizers can be just as dangerous. Even organic gardening products contain compounds that, when inhaled or absorbed through the skin, can irritate the lungs, eyes, and nervous system. Symptoms of exposure range from mild nausea and headaches to more serious conditions like chronic breathing problems. The solution is simple: wear gloves to reduce skin contact with soil. Avoid working in dry, dusty conditions where particles can be inhaled. Test your soil for contaminants, especially if you live in an older home or near heavy traffic. And when using any gardening chemicals, always follow safety instructions and avoid direct exposure. Your plants might love the soil, but that does not mean it is safe for you. And if you think dirt can be risky, the next gardening injury comes from something that moves, and it is not always friendly. Injury number 11: hidden pests that bite and spread disease. You are not the only one who loves your garden. Beneath the leaves, under the soil, and even in the grass, there are creatures lurking that can leave you with more than just an itchy bite. Some carry diseases, others inject venom, and a few are just downright painful to cross paths with. Ticks are one of the biggest concerns. The CDC reports that cases of Lyme disease and other tick-borne illnesses have been rising, especially among older adults. These tiny parasites latch on to the skin, often without being noticed, and can transmit infections that cause fever, joint pain, and long-term neurological issues. Mosquitoes are another risk, spreading viruses like West Nile, which can lead to severe flu-like symptoms. Fire ants, spiders, and even certain caterpillars can deliver painful stings or bites that cause allergic reactions. The worst part? Many bites go unnoticed at first. A tick can stay attached for hours without causing immediate discomfort. Some spider bites do not show symptoms until the venom starts to spread. Even a simple mosquito bite can become infected if scratched too much. Protecting yourself is easier than you think. Wear long sleeves and pants when working in tall grass or near dense plants. Use insect repellent, especially during warm months. Check your skin for ticks after gardening, paying close attention to hidden areas like behind the knees and around the waist. If you get bitten and notice unusual swelling, redness, or flu-like symptoms, seek medical attention immediately. Bites and stings are bad enough, but the final gardening injury is the one that can happen in an instant, and it often involves the very tools meant to help you. Injury number 12, accidents with power tools and sharp equipment. A good set of gardening tools makes the job easier, but in the wrong moment they can turn a simple task into an emergency. Lawn mowers, hedge trimmers, shears, and even trowels cause thousands of serious injuries every year, and most of them happen in the blink of an eye. According to the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, over 1,000,000 people end up in the emergency room each year due to gardening tool accidents. Lawn mowers alone account for thousands of deep cuts, fractures, and even amputations. Hedge trimmers and pruning shears cause painful lacerations, often because hands are too close to the blades or the tools slip. Even a simple hand trowel can cause deep punctures if used carelessly. Most accidents happen because of distractions, improper handling, or dull blades that require extra force to use. A moment of lost focus while trimming a hedge, a mower blade hitting a hidden rock and sending debris flying, a rusty pair of shears slipping mid-cut. All it takes is one mistake. The best way to stay safe? Always wear gloves and eye protection when using sharp tools. Keep blades sharp to reduce the need for extra force. Never rush when handling power tools, and always turn them off completely before making adjustments. Store tools properly when not in use to prevent trips and accidental cuts. Gardening is one of life's greatest joys. It keeps you active, gets you outside, and gives you the satisfaction of watching something grow. But as you have seen, it is not without its risks. A little carelessness can turn a relaxing afternoon into days or even weeks of regret. The good news? Every injury we talked about is preventable. Protect your back and knees, stay hydrated, watch out for hidden hazards, and most importantly, never underestimate the power of a good pair of gloves, sturdy shoes, and a little common sense. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had a gardening injury that caught you by surprise? Drop a comment and share your story. And if you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe to AgeWise for more smart tips to stay active, safe, and thriving. Thanks for watching, and happy gardening.